Hi, I'm Kevin and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make a dehydrated version of Vietnamese beef stew, or Bò Kho. To make this, you're going to need these ingredients. You're going to need an onion, some garlic, some ginger, a couple of carrots, a couple stalks of lemongrass, some good soy sauce, some fish sauce, beef stock, tomato paste, and some Chinese 5-spice and chili powder, a little bit of brown sugar, and some rice noodles. I look for the ones that are nice and flat, not too wide. Rice noodles are a really great ingredient to use in a meal like this because they don't need to be cooked and dehydrated. They reconstitute just fine in hot water when you rehydrate the rest of the meal. You may have noticed I didn't mention beef. This is a beef stew, so Kev, where's the beef? Well, I'm going to add it later. I find I get much better results if I dehydrate my beef separately than the rest of the meal. I'll dehydrate the meat at about 160, the rest of the meal at about 135, and I get very good rehydration that way. So when I dehydrate my beef, I do it in a very big batch so that I can supply many different meals. I have a whole video on my technique of how I do this. I'll dehydrate a big batch, keep it in a large Ziploc bag in the freezer, and when I assemble different meals like this Vietnamese beef stew, I'll add the right amount of beef to that individual meal. Okay, let's get on with the prep. I don't use lemongrass very often in my own cooking, but it does enhance the flavor. It's kind of like what a bay leaf does for Western cooking. You put it in, it simmers with the meal, it enhances the flavor, and you fish it out before you serve your dish. I cut this lemongrass up an awful lot. Pounding it and cutting it helps that flavor release, but the more pieces you have, the more trouble it is to fish out. And these days you can often find freeze-dried lemongrass in the grocery store. It's a great alternative. I will add that to this kind of a meal when I package my meal, It will give off its flavor when the meal rehydrates and you add hot water. The really good thing about it is it doesn't completely dissolve, but you don't mind it in your dish and you don't have to fish it out later. All right, let's get on with assembling and cooking this dish. Let's finish the prep by opening up the can of tomato paste. And then I'm going to get out my favorite pot. And turn on the stove, medium high. Going to add just a little bit of oil to the warm pot. You want to minimize oil and fat in any dehydrated meal. And then I'm going to add the sliced onions. These are sliced, not diced. I want that sliced texture in the final version of the stew. Then the garlic and ginger, just going to warm that up just for a minute, and then I'm going to stop the cooking and add the beef stock. And then the spices, the 5 spice and chili powder and the brown sugar. And then the tomato paste. A real simple assembly, actually. Then the carrots and the lemongrass. I'm going to give that a stir, and then I'm going to cover it, let it come up to a simmer, and let it cook until the carrots are nicely done. You want the carrots just a little bit soft, not mushy at all. And I'm going to fish out the lemongrass with a spider. And after I burn my fingertips, I'm going to get smart and use some tongs. There. Ready to dehydrate. I'm just going to spread out this stew on my tray. Multiple trays. And then I'm going to put it in the dehydrator and set it for 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will transform into a nice dry version of its former self. I'm just going to scrape it off those trays, put it in a bowl, and then we're almost set. Now, I haven't forgotten about the soy sauce and the fish sauce. I'm going to grab a 15 milliliter bottle and fill half with fish sauce and the other half with soy sauce. I'm going to add this to my meal when I rehydrate that meal. This meal is now in 4 different components: the stew sauce, the noodles, the soy and fish sauce, and the ground meat. How do I put this together? When you get down to packaging individual meals from this recipe, you're going to have to do a little bit of math. The proportions are right, but now you have to work with the dry ingredients. So the recipe calls for 200 grams of rice noodles, and 1 pound of beef after it's dried is about 110 grams. And when I weighed the stew sauce after it was dried, I got 116 grams. And that gives me a total of 426 grams. And I know from experience that an ideal dry weight for one of my meals in the backcountry is 130 grams. I know this from experience, but also I describe how to calculate this for yourself in my book, Backcountry Eats. So what I can do now is use the proportions of those dry ingredients. I can calculate the relative percentage, and I can round up a little bit to 25%, 25%, and 50%. It doesn't matter. You just want to be in the ballpark. And then I can measure out the amount of each of those components and assemble the dish, package it up, and I'm ready to go. So here's my meal, all packaged and ready to go. Let's rehydrate this and see how it tastes. So if you like this recipe, you might want to check out my book, Backcountry Eats. It's a great resource for making meals like this for your backcountry adventures. You can find Backcountry Eats on Amazon or on my website, backcountryeats.com. That's backcountry-eats.com. After this rehydrates, I'm going to add a little bit of oil to return the fatty taste to the meal. And I'm also going to add the soy and fish sauce. And I'm going to give it a bit of a stir. I could have probably used a spoon to stir that instead of chopsticks, but I'm just trying to get into the theme. All right, so let's give this a try. I am no expert with the chopsticks, but if you don't practice, you're never going to learn. That is really, really good. Everything's rehydrated nicely. I'm not getting a lot of the beef because this doesn't have slices of beef. Instead, I've got ground beef. But I can just barely get it with the chopsticks. I'm going to switch to a spoon for that reason. But this is really, really good. The onions and carrots are a little sparse in here, but they add just the right amount of additional texture and flavor. Okay, switching to a spoon to really get the broth. That's really, really good. Really get the 5 spice. It's not overpowering. It blends nicely. All right, this is a winner. I've got some canoe trips planned this year. This is coming with me on my next trip. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please hit like, share, and subscribe. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.